All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another great episode of the unapologetic, unfiltered, and uncensored podcast, Speak to the Mic. I am your illustrious host, Marlon Joseph. And here with me today, the first time on this show, I have a couple with me, a Black couple preferably. And one thing I want to do, I want to preface my comments by saying this. So on this show, we like to provide informative content and information to our Black communities. We like to talk to everyday Black men and women, regardless of profession, and get their take on what it is that we need to do more of and less of in our Black community, as well as celebrate and acknowledge those Black men and women who are in those different professions, who are making immediate impacts in our Black community on an everyday basis. So for that, I want to also preface this comment by saying that this couple, this Black couple, preferably on this show, we celebrate Black love as well as Black just excellence in general. And this couple exemplifies and models that very sentiment to a T, because they have been married for a number of years now. They actually are not only companions, but they're partners in their particular field of industry. And so I want to definitely make sure I acknowledge this couple the best as I can and give them the proper introduction that they deserve. And so joining me today is both Harry and Crystal Valentine of Chicago. They are both Chicago natives who have the heart to help their people in the Black community, preferably in the Chicagoland area, as business owners, and obviously in the real estate business, preferably. So they've done a lot of great things in the commercial aspect, from the janitorial services, as well as project control and project management from that standpoint too. And so please join me as I just appreciate this Black couple for being on my show to talk about what they're doing, the great things they're doing in the Chicagoland area. Both Harry, Crystal, I thank you all so much for being on this show to talk about the many things that you guys are doing, the immediate impacts that you're making in our Black community. I'm happy to just be here to talk with you all. And let me also say this too, real quick. Crystal and I are really good friends, and we actually graduated from high school together. So you can always hear me talk about Chicago from a positive standpoint, regardless of what you may hear on the news and all the different news outlets or media outlets that actually portray a lot of the negative connotation associated with Chicago. There's much more to Chicago than just all the gang violence that you all have seen and witnessed. So with that being said, Harry and Crystal Valentine, who are very good friends of mine, who I appreciate being on this show. Thank you all for taking the time to be on this show.
Thank you.
Marlon, thank you for that.
We drop mic. We can just head out.
You know what? Cut it off.
I hope I did you guys a justice.
Drop mic. I think you're good.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
I appreciate that. Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, this is a pleasure.
Thank you for even having this platform to share this knowledge to our people. I think this is special. Something that I know many have been impacted by. So we commend you on that, the consistency of keeping our people informed on ways that they could improve, challenging us to stay connected and finding ways to grow in a season, or, you know, in life where culture or everything around us showing us differently. So we appreciate you for doing this. This is amazing. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I definitely want to, again, acknowledge the fact that you guys are not only companions, but you all are partners in your business in regards to the real estate investment industry. And that's a beautiful thing, because a lot of times our Black community preferably doesn't really fully understand what that Black love exemplifies. So we think more just about the wedding and the marriage, but it's so much more to it. It's so many nuances to marriage in regards to just a healthy and loving marriage and a healthy and loving family. And so with you guys, you know, being in business with each other and, you know, for 15 years, you say, that's a beautiful thing, because you can tell us the ups and downs and the tricks of the trades. I know there's no necessarily a blueprint for it, but you guys have been able to manage and work well together to partner up and be able to do excellent things in the city of Chicago. So again, I commend you all for that, because I could even tell you how challenging that would be for most people, right? So I don't want to speak for anybody else, but you guys, you know, preferably can speak on that note. So how did you guys even get into just the real estate investment industry, preferably from a project management standpoint? How did that even come about?
Yeah. So, well, it started 15 years ago.
Okay.
It started 15 years ago.
We had a thought.
Yeah, it was a thought.
I thought with a thought. Yeah.
It's always a thought. And also it started with a need, a
Yeah.
need
All
to
right.
provide for our family, coming out of a lifestyle, speaking of myself, coming out of a lifestyle that wasn't necessarily producing the fruit that we wanted to
Yeah.
produce.
Yeah.
Life shifted fast.
Yeah.
And
Kids came.
kids came, okay, now father
Yeah.
and husband, and now trying to redirect my path in terms of providing for a family. And I was provided an opportunity to work at one of the local churches, and this was just to clean. And so as I was trying to transition out of this lifestyle, this was just a perfect opportunity for me to get out of what I've always known in our hood, our neighborhood, and to do something positive. And I started cleaning, toilets and carpets and sanitizing the church. That opportunity built and birthed into word to mouth. We start, hey, you guys clean this. So next thing you know, it was more of a opportunity for us to say, hey, let's jump into this cleaning business.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't necessarily janitorial at that time. It was, hey,
Oh.
let's do some cleaning. Went to Home Depot, got some buckets, and say, let's do this. And we start to see that there was a market for it.
Yeah.
And as it started to grow, as it started to develop, and we were just doing right by people, we start to see the keys that we had were starting to grow. Like, hey, people are just, man, fleeing and giving us the opportunity. So years went on, and we were just doing that as a business. And then we were like, okay, we got to do this right. So we
I was gonna
established.
say that if I could
Yeah,
interject a little
yeah.
bit, that part where it was like, we got to do this right though, right?
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
we can go in this backwards. We can get so far along,
Mhm.
right? And we got all this word of mouth, but we can be not taken seriously if we don't have the proper certifications, the proper
yeah,
LLCs and so forth, right?
yeah,
And so, I just wanted to add that part. It was at that point that we were like, let's make sure we get stuff on paper correctly, right? So we can come through official. They take us seriously. And to be honest, when we start to present ourselves outside of just the word to mouth,
sure.
we're going to be legit.
Yeah, and one thing, Marlon, that we highlighted, and what we found in that season was we were growing out of that mindset of
Mhm.
just enough.
Yeah.
We were growing into becoming a mature business, so we knew that we had to have our accounting, set up, our system set up,
Tax
LLC
preparations,
set up.
yeah.
But we grew out of that, and then we started to connect with different resources and different people to help us to shape and form that very thing. And as we did that, we start to notice that our demographic of business began to change.
Mhm.
So we were servicing local small business, Black businesses in this inner city. But then we start to see that, man, because we got our paperwork in order, we start to attract a different type of business,
We went
which
after
was
city contracts.
property managers, investors, contracts, more bigger scale.
Mhm.
And that opened up a door for us to say, well, okay, you guys can do more than just janitorial services.
Absolutely.
So working alongside of those property management companies, being a fly on the wall and seeing how their systems are formed and how they were working, we began to become inspired by what we were involved in.
Yeah.
And that grew into, hey, we can do this.
Well, I want to say too, if I
Mhm.
can, Bae,
Sure.
also too, when we were working alongside of those managers, those property managers, we were also working alongside of some of the actual owners,
Yeah.
Okay.
right? So we were having the opportunity to be inside of the one-on-one space with the owners. And I really truly believe, not only was it the time that we were with like the property managers and stuff like that, did we learn a lot, but I think we learned a lot cleaning the offices of the actual investors.
Absolutely.
Wow. But we got to hear some stuff and we got to see some stuff. We got
Absolutely.
to bounce some stuff off of them. They bounce some stuff back to us. They challenge us a little bit. Why don't you go try this? Why don't you go do this? What do you think about this? You know what I'm saying? And I think it was in those moments for us we had already talked about wanting to be investors, right? We already talked about wanting to have ownership of property, right? And I think Harry can really speak to how it was like implanted in him, but we had already kind of talked about that early on. But you know, how we often do, we think, well, we ain't really got the coins for that. You know, we're not there yet. We really can't do that. And so, but yeah, so being around those investors and hearing their stories, and I just have to say this, and I love how you say unapologetically, we gonna talk. So being around Caucasian investors and hearing their stories, how the mom and pops just started also with a thought, right? And then they also started with a sacrifice, right? There were some sacrifices that happened. And so I would hear their stories, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the African American thing. Maybe it's just a Crystal thing. I don't know. But I really think that sometimes we think that the sacrifices is just going to be so far gone and so critical that we won't be able to come up out of it. Yeah. But I'm hearing them, and I'm like, it sounds like they had some sacrifices. It sounds like they didn't eat. It sounds like they ate some pasta, you know, for the whole week. You know, grandma brought over the pasta. It was frozen with the meatballs, and they had to heat it up too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hear the struggle. Yeah. So why am I thinking in my head that the little struggle that I'm gonna have, you know what I'm saying, won't get me to where they are today, right? Sure. And I know my husband always hates when I say this, but I'm talking about like big investors in Chicago, right? I'm talking about some of the top people here. We're in the room with them, and I'm hearing their story, and I'm like, man, I mean, if it takes just one person in our family to just go out on the limb and be that sacrificial lamb, I guess that's gonna be us, babe. Yeah.
But even from that standpoint, you look at it from a strategic standpoint and see that the risk is greater than the rewards in some cases, but then the reward could ultimately be greater than the risk you take too. And so, and having that companion there with you to go through these things, you know that you're not in this alone. And so that of course gives you reassurance that, you know what, this little minor setback is going to be just very little compared to the comeback that's actually going to be at the end of this. And so that's something that I obviously highlight too, especially given that you guys being married and having a family that's already established. You want to make sure, okay, listen, I'm going to make sure my family don't go without anything while I'm doing this, or at least go without very little. And so and a lot of those different fears and trepidations oftentimes happen in everyday life anyway. So you're going to always have those worries and concerns early on. But when you have those pillow talks, as you said, you know, just, babe, I got you, or we got each other. We in this. So we're going to make sure we do 100% throughout this entire process and come out on top of this. And so I commend you all for that.
Yeah. You know, one other thing that I can say really helps, I think this is a great nugget for anyone to take, is examples, right? We saw examples of companionship in business. Yep. So when we're talking about being in the room, it wasn't just the husband in the room. Yeah, it was husband and wife.
Husband and wife, yeah.
You know, and we saw how they at times, not always pretty, right?
I'm sure.
Somebody was going to be on the couch. I'm going to tell you, somebody's going to be on the couch. However, we saw that dynamic in business play out. And we were flies on the wall. When I'm taking, this probably would take me 2 hours to clean the office, but I was going to be in there until they were leaving. Like, I'm taking that extra hour because I'm looking at how they're interacting, and I'm learning. I'm seeing these different exchanges in business and saying, okay, one day this is going to be us. You know, maybe not today, but I'm taking and soaking it all in. No different than one of our great mentors. We love them to life, are the Blaneys. And what we learned over 8 years of servicing their facility
from the janitorial standpoint,
it was just amazing the amount of wisdom that we were able to just pick up in 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute exchanges of conversation while serving them over those years. We can look back and say that example has helped mature us in spaces, although we don't have it all figured out. But it's important to get underneath someone that you can see some similarities in, and find ways to help curve, you know, that learn, or straighten out that learning curve at times, and say, hey, we've seen you guys do this. What would you suggest that we can do to help in this area? So it's just something about mentorship, somebody that can pour into you
Yeah,
the
that's
wisdom of
big.
others
It
that
is.
can help you navigate through
Yeah.
through
It's
experience.
I was just gonna say, and that was Black excellence right there. That couple that you
Absolutely.
talked about was Black excellence. I mean, like Black excellence. And so, with that being said, yes. And so we just had to take all of those different pockets of opportunities.
Sure.
We had to take it back home or back to our little makeshift desk, right? Which
Yeah.
was our dining room, aka dining room. Okay.
Your drawing board and start drawing things up and just like painting things out strategically. Yep.
Yeah, we had to go take it back. And so we knew again in our hearts, like, now I grew up in the Northwest suburbs, came to Chicago, around high school. And so, yes, my upbringing is totally different than my husband's upbringing, right?
Yeah.
He's from the inner city. Again, I visited the inner city every summer. So, I mean, I got a taste. I know what it's like, so I'm from the Chatham area. If you want to make me part of Chicago,
Well, you from Chicago, Crystal. Ain't no doubt. We CVS alumni. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no doubt in that. The one thing about Crystal has always been about her business. Like I would never take that away from her. She's always been about business to a T, having all her documents all in order and everything. So Crystal,
yes. Yes. So, like I come from, a different upbringing, yes, but again, when I say that, coming to Chicago and coming to see my family and stuff like that, staying here for the summers and things, I stayed in the Chatham area, which, to whoever, it could go either way, right? For me, you could be on one side of Chatham and, it's good. You can be on the other side of Chatham and it could be a little different, right? But at the end of the day, I knew that I wanted to somehow, some way give back to my community. That's always just been in my heart, right? And so when we realized that a really good way we can give back to our community is we just gonna have some financially responsibility to our community, okay? Because I think when you have an investment in your community that's tied to your finances for whatever reason, people move differently, right?
Yeah.
And so, we already had the emotional connection. We already had the passion and the love. And so we were like, man, we want to do it on a financial outpour as well. And so, that's how in a short story, that's kind of how we ended up really deciding that we want to make purchases in our communities, right? And so we sought out as investors, we sought out to go for communities, and I'll let you tell that part of your story, but we sought out for areas that spoke to us and spoke to our upbringing.
Very much so relatable. Absolutely. Yeah. It's something you said earlier too, Harry, about how some of those conversations with the husband and the wife like tend to differ. And it's funny you said it because I know a lot of times for me and my wife, or even for other couples for that matter, so it could be something that you and your wife actually didn't talk about, but it's like, okay, we're supposed to understand each other and actually agree on this. But then if the husband says one thing and the wife says something different, now the wife looking at him like, yeah, he's right. It's like, okay, now you're going to have the answer for that response later. And now it's like, well, we didn't talk about this, baby. And it's usually the wife. It's not to bad mouth the wife, but it's true. The wife usually be like, well, listen, we didn't agree on that, did we? It was like, well, no, we didn't talk about it. So don't necessarily blame me for that, but whatever. A lot of times you have those miscommunications, but it oftentimes rewards itself too, because it's like, okay, I didn't look at it from this perspective, but your partner, your companion brings a broader perspective in that area that you didn't necessarily even pay attention to. And so now you're coming to that agreement. Okay, well, you know what? I didn't know this before you said that, and now we're working together even more to build on that. And so,
absolutely.
And if I may, I would go ahead and let the people know that is not easy.
No, it's
definitely. Not. I've been on the couch. He's been on the couch. The couch definitely has had some warmth and some dents based on this partnership, right? These moments. I mean,
those respectful disagreements, if you will.
There you go. That's a good one.
Absolutely.
Look at that.
Absolutely. And you know what? We're always in a solution-minded mindset. Like we're thinking about solutions. So what has helped us throughout the different business experiences or respectfully disagreements, is we've just categorized lanes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Crystal's lane. she can override any and everything in her lane.
Yeah.
Here's my lane. I can override any and everything in my lane. This doesn't mean that we're any different in terms of ownership as it relates to the business. It's just, okay, respectfully, if I could give my opinion in that area, and she's like, well, no, I think we need to go here. I think we could do this. I have to respect that.
Yeah.
And once we come to that agreement, that understanding, it makes moments of where it's just like, wait, I don't remember that, but that's in her lane. So if that's what she agreed to do, then that's what we go for. And it's the trust factor also.
Yeah, it's absolutely that. On top of the fact that you're going to understand that you don't understand everything and you don't know everything, but your partner may step in and say, okay, well, that's their area. This is the particulars that they know versus what you don't know. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna, basically step back and let you handle that aspect because you know more about that than I do. And that's okay, because that's being equally yoked, but also being submissive and helping each other out in every area anyway. So you're still actually helping yourself by knowing that you're not the smartest person in the room. And so I'll oftentimes say this about my own wife too. So my wife, collectively, we have 5 degrees. And so she got 3 and she's a doctor. I always tell people I'm the smartest one because I married a doctor. So funny enough, it's like, okay, from that aspect, then yeah, I can see from your perspective how you would view that as being the smarter person. So she's smarter than me from that area of getting the PhD. I'm smarter in this area from marrying the person with the PhD.
There you go. I love that.
Hey,
it works out. It works
absolutely. Out. Win-win on both sides.
Yeah. And I love that you say that, because that part took work for us to figure that out.
Oh, listen, let me say this too. Now, it's still taking work for us. It's never a finished product, right? So obviously those types of things and those concerns, or even those battles for that matter, it's going to always be ongoing. You're going to always have to continuously be open-minded and have your ears open to hear from new perspectives from your spouse, because you're not going to know everything. You're not going to be able to just lead and not take the back seat at some point in time, because then how could you say you're equally yoked if you're not equally contributing to this marriage or to this companionship and partnership, if you will. So those are the types of things that even us as millennials, we're learning, more so either on the fly or while as we go on, versus some of the things that some of our parents, unfortunately, some of us didn't have parents to give us that type of blueprint, but we're understanding that, okay, you know what, I don't have all the answers, but I am willing to learn and listen to my companion who may know a little bit more about this than I do, because I need to be able to defer to her or him and say, okay, you know what, babe, this is your lane. Go right ahead and take the wheel on this one, because I'm gonna learn from you as well as us learning together, because in the end, you're both learning.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's really true. For me, I come from this communications background, broadcasting, things like that. And so that whole communication piece for me really is like part of my fiber. It's in my DNA, right?
Yeah.
And so like for my husband, he comes from the background of education, ministry. All of that is in his fiber. That's in his DNA. That's what he eats. He breathes on a daily basis, right? And so when we were able to merge the two, right, we recognize that, my strength in communication may not necessarily look like his strength in communication, right? So like when it came down to paperwork, when it came down to interactions with investors from our property management standpoint, or even as investors, when it came down to, a deal or something like that, more than likely we saw ourselves switching. When it came down to, as an investor, us going for a deal, that's him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All paperwork and stuff like that, that's him. Yes, I'm gonna review it. I'm gonna look over it. I'm gonna make sure we going through the verbiage and we making sure we're all on the same page. But when it came down to finding the property, going after the property, doing our inspections, but also our property analysis and stuff like that. While I may know how to do a property analysis, him being able to communicate what he put together from what he curated to present back to our realtor, or even the other realtor, for us to present that back, that's probably going to be something that he can easier communicate, because he's also too, he looks at numbers all day, every day. So that's something that he can communicate, and so fluid for him, right? For me, if I need to speak up and come from another communication standpoint, in whatever regard, whether it's, you know, confirming the paperwork, making sure what we read is legitimate, that it applies on both sides, whatever it is,
Yep.
I can come from that angle, right? And so that took some time for us to figure out those strengths. You know, at first we were working against each other as it related to both of us trying to operate in both lanes, right? And so when we recognize like, oh, okay, bet, well, you know, you want to go through the verbiage, and the verbiage, you know, gives you some type of, you know, kicks and giggles. So you go through the verbiage, while I'm going to make sure these numbers match up to, you know, what it is that we want to say yes to.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's being able to take all those variables together and make for a healthy result when it comes to adding things up and getting the answers that you guys you know, ultimately want and expect from that particular project. So this leads me to my next question too. In regards to project management, I remember a while back, Crystal, you had posted a video of I think from an outreach program standpoint. So they were building I think an Inglewood community center, or potentially a community center in Inglewood in Chicago, and I'm not sure if it ever got completed or if it was still in progress, or what's the status on that, and how important is that, how vital is that to have those community centers, you know, lie within, you know, the heart of Chicago of all places?
Man, I love the community centers from so many different standpoints, right? Again, as I said earlier, I grew up in the northwest suburbs. He grew up in the inner city. What's interesting is that we both still had community centers in both of our neighborhoods, right? I grew up inside of, you know, complexes and stuff like that for a great portion of my childhood until we finally lived in a home. But for him, growing up in a single family home, both his parents, you know, what he may have went to a community center for probably was totally different than me growing up with just my mom and what I'm going to a community center for, right?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he had friends that maybe had some similarities to myself, but what I'm saying is I know the relevance behind community centers, right?
Absolutely.
And so the initiative itself that was happening in Inglewood, we were able to pick up and be a part of that. You know, also too, we might as well just put it out there, let the cat out the bag. Harry is also a pastor. And so he's a youth pastor. And so, you know, we got wind of it from more of a lane of, you know, our ministry, right? Yeah. But it spoke to us because we do outreach as well. And that's like a whole nother thing that we're into, but it really intertwines with everything that we do. And so outreach for us is one of those things where, man, hey, if it's something God is bringing us to, if it's something we're supposed to be a part of, we're going to put everything we can into it. And so the particular ministry that brought it to us because they were looking for additional assistance as it related to how they can get funding. And so, you know, what they really needed was, and it's an older ministry, if you will. When I say older, I mean, I know it's gonna be like, wait, older. No, when I say older, I mean like the tools that they would use were not as
up to date.
Yeah. Right. And so when I recognize that I can come in and help them with different tools, whether it was social media, whether it's actually hitting the streets, right? You can use some old-fashioned stuff, but in a new way, right? So whether it was hitting the streets, whether it was showing up at, you know, whatever, different places, walking into actual, you know, neighborhood businesses and stuff like that, and actually pitching, you know, what they were trying to do, let's do it. And so I was able to come in that way. Harry and some of his family actually took partnership as it related to actually doing some of the different events, fundraising, if you will, in person at the place. So saying all that to say, to bring you back, once we were able to really get the word out there, why it was needed. And I think that I don't have to say a lot, but I'll tell you, if you know anything about Inglewood, okay, first off, I think what's interesting is if you Google Inglewood in any city, the wood is the wood wherever, right?
Yes, it is. I always get into like arguments with people from like Inglewood with the I in California versus, I'm like, listen, we're from the real Inglewood with the E.
But at the end of the day, the wood is the wood, right? It doesn't matter where you Google it. I actually Googled it a couple of weeks ago. I was having a conversation with someone who's from the other Inglewood, LA. And so I Googled it and I was like, it's interesting, is the wood consistently, no matter wherever, right?
It really is.
But yeah, so basically, again, if you know anything about Inglewood, but Inglewood and Chicago particularly, right now it's a lot of dilapidated, areas over there, right? It's a lot of, broken down systems, a lot of just open land and fields, abandoned houses, apartments, businesses, all of that that has happened there, right? And I can go into as an investor and as a property manager, I know why that's happening, right? But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But all of that was happening, and that was what probably about 4 or 5 years ago almost, specifically when we first became a part of that campaign or helped out in that campaign. And so, the ministry really wanted to bring back this sense of togetherness in the community. They really wanted to bring back, opportunities for homeless people to have somewhere to go, to sleep, to shower, stuff like that, have a meal, things like that, not always just, eating out of the garbage cans or, having to go into these restaurants and beg for stuff. They wanted to be a staple piece in the community. It was very hard for them. And what I love is, they ended up getting other people to come on board and to help out with them as it relates to their outreach, as it relates to them getting in front of government officials and, just local other branches that was in the neighborhood. And they really started to get a lot of traffic in that regard. Momentum really kicked up, and they were able to raise the funds that they needed to at least break ground and get building. That's not a direct project of ours, but it was one that we were a part of that successfully today, not today, but now in the future, a month ago, they were able to finally open up their doors. They have an entire full. So the name of that place is called the Bishop Shepherd Little Memorial Center. I would love, Marlon, to put you in contact with them so you can be able to talk to them more as well.
Absolutely.
But now they have a full gym. All right. They have showers, they have classrooms, they have partnerships with Brookfield Zoo, they have partnerships with some other main corporations. And so these places are now understanding. And we know 2020 opened up a lot of eyes for a lot of people, right? And I'm gonna be honest with you, us in the Black community at this point, we're going to ride this wave. So y'all know that we are here, and that not only are we people too, but we have ideas and we have businesses and we have responsibilities back to our communities as well, right? And so we're going to accept under, good partnerships. We're going to accept people who understand that same mission, who are going to give back to our communities. And so they were able to get those partnerships. And so the place is amazing. It's amazing. And so right now they are able to offer these different services to the community, childcare, youth programs and stuff like that, STEM programs they're going to be offering in the future. They're able to offer that back to the community, but in the wood where somebody somewhere tried to cancel us out.
Wow.
And they were able to bring that back, and they're starting to get teachers who are going to donate their services for free. They're starting to get people who are going to work inside of the kitchen to provide meals, as donated services. They're going to obviously utilize some of the school system, stuff like that. I can go on and on about it. I know it's not my personal project, but the passion that I have for things like that in our Black and Brown communities is just, it's that passion. It's that passionate for me, because I know we need it. Our kids need other things to do besides sitting in front of the screen.
Yep.
All day.
And obviously either like playing video games, things like that, and wanting things to be instantaneously given to them versus having to work for it, right? So that initiative that you talk about when it comes to that passion for wanting to pour back into your community, you're going to see a return on your investment when you do that, because now you're seeing your community, it's becoming much more than what it once was even when you were a kid. Now it's much more promising. It's many more individuals who are out there making a difference and pouring right back into what was poured into them. And the one thing for sure that I know, that when you invest in someone or a group of people, that out of that group of people, it can be 100 people, and it can be maybe 20 of them who actually successfully come out of that from a successful standpoint. And they're going to put money back into that because something helped them get to where they were or where they are now. And so that's the overall scope that I want people to take from this, is that the more we put into our community, the more we're going to see a return on that investment from a positive standpoint, not just from a financial, but the fact that you guys are seeing both the positive and the financial returns on your investment. that's a great thing, and man, and a great thing to embark on as far as getting more people involved in that and want to do more of that as well. And so I appreciate you guys for doing that.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. And that has really helped shape our core values at 1111 Property Management. Because one thing about a business, you got to have a value. You have to have something that you stand for. That's mission, that's vision. You need to establish that in order to help you know where you're going. It's a tool to keep you on the path in which you want to go. And so we talked about these different things, several different capacities, several different areas, and it helps shape our core values. And one of our core values is be the solution. And it's not just internally. You know, this being the solution is an outward expression what we want to see within our communities as well. So
the changes you want to see. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The conversations that we have with investor, conversation we have with tenant is with a solution mindset to help them to, you know, figure out the different nuances, whatever that may be, you know, even if it's something that's going to directly impact their personal space, their unit, or even the community as a whole. And then we have our second core value is create the experience. You know, we want our tenants and investors to bring that up north downtown experience right into our communities.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, so we want to create that space, and then also communicate, then communicate. I know it sounds like, wait, you just said communicate, then communicate. Because communication, the gap of communication is wide. It's like you talk to one person, tenant, and you talk to an investor, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm a great communicator. I make sure. And then you talk to the other person, they're like, no, I haven't heard anything from them. So our goal, our purpose is to help bridge that communication gap within our communities, because we've seen a lot of miscommunication that has caused a lot of hurt and a lot of pain within our communities. And again,
and even distrust too. I mean, it's like you can't really, the tenant can't really trust that the landlord can't really trust the tenant, and vice versa. It's like, okay, well, I'm saying I reached out, but they haven't responded back or whatever, or they responding back like, you know, weeks and months later. And so it's like, yeah, like you said, that communication gap is huge, and we definitely want to make sure we're bridging that gap, not just even in Chicago, but everywhere. But that's a very valid point.
Absolutely. And then, you know, our last is be the change, helping to redefine the culture within the community. And all of these aspects of core values were not just for us to only do internally. You know, this is an external work that we want to see transpire within our communities. And yes, it has shaped over the years of identifying each other and our strengths of marriage, companionship, but then also in business, Black and brown communities, business, and helping with financial literacy. All of these different things is exactly what we're trying to mold and shape and to present to our people. And that's who we are, and that's what we inspire to do. And we're glad to, you know, to be on a platform like this just helps us to continue to push that message.
Yeah, you guys are definitely exemplifying that narrative, because not only, like you said, not only are you guys business partners, but you all are married. And so you're being the very change that you want to see by exemplifying the very things that you want to see from your own community. So it's going to be people in the community to see, okay, well, this is a husband and wife who, this is a Black owned business that they own. They're business partners as well as companions. Like, how do we get to that point? Like, you guys are an example for many people in the Black community, especially in Chicago, where it's like, okay, you know what, this is something you can ultimately become, or you can even take this particular blueprint and even go even further with it, right? So this kind of led me to my next question in regards to this. What has been the feedback and just the overall response from community activists, community leaders, politicians, or even just the community in general? What have been the overall feedback that you guys have been receiving with the many efforts that you guys have been partaking in?
Well, I guess one way I can answer that, I want to double back for one thing that he mentioned, and I think that'll help me better answer that. So with 1111 Property Management being the solution to our communities, is that we wanted to change the narrative, right?
Yeah.
We talk about changing the narrative, but I want to break that down just a little bit. When we talk about changing the narrative, we are holding our investors responsible again for, again, not just making a purchase, right? And I also want to speak to most of our investors that attract to us are investors that are Black and brown investors, right? We appreciate that part because we know that we have this, we're going to have some similarities as it relates to not only just potential upbringing, but similarities as to why you're investing in the community, right? And so with that being said, we want to make sure that we challenge them and challenge them in a good way, not challenge them in like that negative way that we think of when we hear that word, but challenge them in a good way to be not only just investors, but let's be a part of the community as an investor as well, because that's how we challenged ourselves, right? And so with that being said, you know, keeping your property maintenance and manicured well, and your, you know, keeping up the building itself, things like that, making sure it's well lit, you know what I mean? Like, you know, just keeping it beautified, because one of the things that we recognize with gentrification, if you will, is that they came in and they made everything upscale, right?
Yep.
And so it's the illusion that excuse me, a lot of things that we have may or may not look like that, right?
Yep.
And so if we're going to be a part of the curve, we're going to have to get with the curve, right?
Absolutely.
And so with that being said, we were holding our investors responsible to make sure that we are being that we are to the T, making sure the properties are well maintained. You know, again, making sure the lawns are good, making sure in the inside, the tenants have their interior of their apartments well maintained as well, from the toilet on down to the fire alarm, to the carpet, to whatever, right? Holding them responsible in that. But also, how do we hold you responsible to making sure that you're being a part of knowing what's happening in the community, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, our thing is to get them to make sure they're keeping up with the aldermen, they're keeping up with the senators, they're keeping up with who's in office. Because if you're not a part of those type of elections and those type of conversations, the town hall meetings and stuff like that, you want to be a part of that, because when you're a part of that, you can stay with the change, right? And you can have some skin in the game.
Yep, you influence, if you will, because if you already know these people, you already having communication with them. Hey, you know, well, I don't quite like this law, this rule that you're putting in place. So let's revisit that, right? Let's unpack that for a second, and let me present to you a reason why this should be this versus it being what you ultimately are presenting to the board or whatever. So yeah, that's a very vital and very important point to make. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we want to push them to be a part of those things, because that's really how you're going to have longevity. If you have no knowledge of what's happening, your investment probably is not going to last long.
No,
you know what's happening. By the time that you find out what's happening, it's already probably yes or no for you. You either gonna go this way or this way. And that's really how it'll end up. And so we really try to push them to be a part of those things. So with that being said, that allowed us to be able to also help our tenants, right? We want to help the tenants in our investors' properties and even our own properties. We want to help our tenants to be able, as Black and brown people, to be able to have some type of financial literacy, right? So one of the things that we advocate for is making sure that not only do, you know, we keep them in the, you know, the straight and narrow line of making sure they pay their rents and stuff like that, but letting them know, like, hey, we're reporting your rents to the credit bureau.
Absolutely.
You're not getting that everywhere.
No, you're not getting it everywhere, because I mean, you're just renting a unit, you're renting a space. So that if you miss that month, then all right, that warning notice comes. Versus like being a homeowner, you actually, your name is on this deed that you are basically paying back the money that was loaned to you to actually own that home. And so making the mortgage payment looks a lot different than the rent, you know, making that rent payment. And so from that standpoint, absolutely, you make
no one will know that you have some type of financial history to, and I'm not going to lie, some of our rents can go anywhere from, you know, let's say $800 to about $2,500, right? Now, from an investor standpoint, you know, even yourself, you know, when you start hitting the 15 to 25, you know, hopefully you're starting to think about ownership of your own, right?
And that's where it should go. Like, you don't want to continuously be a renter, because it's so many perks. And I'm gonna have my realtor on my next episode to talk about this in depth, because there's so many perks of being a homeowner, and so many different incentives and tax breaks and things like that. That's money coming down the pipeline for you each and every year. And even with property taxes and things like that too, those are the types of things that you actually don't get to really understand or know when you're a renter versus when you're a homeowner. So
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
We're not trying to work backwards and put ourselves out of business, but at the end of the day, we want our people to be able to have ownership too.
Absolutely.
We want our people to have land as well.
Absolutely.
There will always be people around to rent, but
Always want to rent.
it's like you want to get carried before you crawl and crawl before you walk. So you want to start this way, but you don't want this to be the end all to everything.
Exactly.
You want to move on to own your own property and be able to call your own shots, do your own, renovations and decorations and things like that without having to worry about a landlord telling you, okay, well, under these laws and restrictions, you can only do but so many things, right? Mm-hmm. And be able to be financially responsible in that aspect to take care of your own property, because now your name is on this. So you're gonna think twice about doing certain things or not doing certain things when this is your property now. Yeah. And you get to have a say so in what goes on around your property, and even from that neighborhood too. Those HOAs, I know for us, we actually have an HOA where we get say so in certain things that we want to see in our neighborhoods, because one house is one house, but when you have hundreds of houses, that makes the neighborhood. And so that neighborhood collectively comes together to make decisions about how to keep the fabric from this neighborhood being, preventing from it being compromised. And how do we beautify that? How do we make this better? How do we make it better for our children? Those are the types of decisions that you make when you become a homeowner versus being a renter.
Yeah, and this is huge, because this is about, we talk about empowering our people. This is one of those aspects that we carry when it comes to management. This is what sets us apart from the other property management companies within the inner city of Chicago. Absolutely. Because it's not only about one N, one S, one E. We're talking Miss Jones, Mr. Jackson, and we understand their financial profile, because we had to do the one to screen them to get them in, right? We screen them. That's very important for us. But there's some people that we screen, residents that we screen, and we see them and we say, man, they're 1 or 2 decisions away from owning their own. But because no one set them down to help them tweak this credit score, make this change, save this here, do this here, they never knew.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of times too, it's because of the many fears that's been put on them by their family members, by their mothers and fathers or grandmothers and fathers. So it's like, well, I had this and this went from, this to that. And now it's like, you're discouraging other people from even taking that opportunity and making more of what you made of it by pushing your fears off on them, or having those fears of even friends for that matter be pushed off on them. Like, well, I used to own my home and, it foreclosed on, I couldn't keep up with it. It's like, we oftentimes bite off more than we could chew when it comes to home ownership. We think the first house you live in got to be your dream house. No, it doesn't. And it's so many misnomers that I learned even personally from a homeowner's perspective. That was just like, wow. So these are the type of things that I was taught or that was being said to me. I had no damn idea this wasn't even true. Like, wait,
exactly.
So this was a lie. This was a myth. And it's like, wow, you really think back on how many years you wasted with just understanding now, okay, I could have probably done this early on, but because I'm in a better financial position, now I can take full advantage of those types of things, like owning my own home. Absolutely. And being able to take it from there. And so, a lot of times it's the lack of education, and it's the fear factors. It's those fear mongering tactics that even our parents or grandparents push off on us, and they didn't really understand the ramifications of what that meant when you're saying, well, listen, I couldn't do this, you can't do it. It's like, no, you couldn't do it because you didn't have the knowledge and know how to do it. Exactly. But I know now, and what you know now can be applied. And I always said this: if applied knowledge is power. It's not knowledge is power. If you know something, you don't apply it. How the hell do you even figure to even say you know it? You're not applying it though. So it's basically going to waste. And so,
I mean, I've had people who, they'll call 1111 property management, like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a property. I'm like, oh, okay, great. No problem. I get a rough little screening, is it for you? Blah, 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 right? And then I'll hit the part where it's like, okay, I'm going to see an application. Then I'll get a call back once they look at the application. Like, wait, so your application is asking for my check stubs, It's asking for, my, employer information. It's asking for wait, are you about to run my credit and my background? Yes.
What did you think this was going to be based on? Like,
Yes.
I mean, you have to establish some type of personal credit in order to understand how financially responsible you are, or where you are in general financially. And so those type of things, people need to understand that. Obviously, it's a hit on your credit. It's not a major hit.
It's a soft hit. I have to explain that so many times. It's a soft. I have to say, Mr. or Mrs. whoever, it's going to be a soft hit. Believe me, this little hit.
It's not going to be that impactful towards what you're going to get approved for or declined for
in return. And that goes back to that fear monger. That goes back to that lack of information where, oh my God, they're going to check my credit and, my credit score is going to go down. This little soft inquiry that we're going to do is not going to ruin your credit. But let me tell you this, once I run your credit, right, and everything makes sense, all of the black and white makes sense, the math makes sense. We know everyone's not going to be perfect in every area, but there's going to be some other areas that outweigh the other, right? So if it all makes sense and I can merge it together and you seem like a really good candidate, for one of our properties, look, when you get in here, guess what? I'm looking right now and I can have these conversations with them, right? Yeah. I'm looking right now at this one line in your credit where, you just need to have something that's a little bit greater so it can nudge your credit up just a little bit more. Mm-hmm. This $1,500 a month that you're about to pay that's going to get reported to the credit bureau for you is going to be that very quick nudge that you need.
Yep.
Because it's going to be consistent, right? It's going to be a paper trail that you are financially responsible to pay. Let's just say a $1,500 a month rent payment, right?
Yeah.
So now let's say Mr. or Mrs. Jones go and they finally want to go buy a home. We've already helped prepare them.
Help you boost that up now. So now those banks that you're going to look for a home loan, they're already pulling that up and seeing that.
You're bankable.
Yep, absolutely. Now they see, okay, based on this person's credit history and just their financial literacy in general, they've been responsible for what they did have. Absolutely. Versus giving you now a little bit more than what you had before. Because it's all about the responsibility aspect. If you know that you're not financially responsible, then guess what? You can't expect to be given a $400,000 and $500,000 home loan from a bank, because that's an investment. They are trusting you to basically pay that money back to them, what they granted to you up front by saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you this money to get this house. I need to know that I can trust you to pay me this money back with interest. And obviously, given your credit history, can ultimately predict what that interest looks like. So that interest can be high, depending on how financially literate and responsible you've been, versus it being moderately low. Like in today's market right now, even with this pandemic, it's been the silver lining in this situation where buying property, you're buying it at a very low rate, and it's been a seller's market. So you having homeowners who have been putting their houses up for sale and been getting, maybe 30 and 40 grand more than what they actually have been putting their house on. I know for me and my wife, our first house that we bought, we got well over the amount that we actually initially paid for it, and we were only in the house 4 years. And it was just like, I didn't think that was even possible, but even learning that from my own realtor, I was just like, man, we need to be doing more of this. So I want to buy another house now. Let's buy another house and let's sell it again. Let's do something with it, because there's so much money in real estate, especially now. And so having to take advantage of that, man, this is an opportune time to do that, especially for us in the Black community, because this is money that we're missing out on. These are incentives that we're missing out on by being ignorant and being fearful of what may be, but may just indeed may have been someone else's situation, someone else's history, or just the things that they went through. Like, you're not necessarily going to go through something that somebody else went through just because they put that on you and say, well, I couldn't do this, so I don't think you're going to have much luck doing that. And we have to stop doing that too. We have to normalize not putting fear off on someone else to discourage them. That's a generational curse within itself that we have to fix.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we want to change that narrative. So again, part of 1111 property management is when we're managing our properties, we're managing our properties, yes, not just from a property management standpoint, but from an investor standpoint, but a Black investor standpoint.
Right.
We want more of our people to sit at the table with us.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, man.
We don't want to sit at the table with just a few of us. We want more of us at the table, but we want you to come to the table responsible.
Absolutely, because
You're not
that says a lot.
responsible.
Yep.
If you're not responsible, we're gonna end up back with the dilapidated neighborhoods again, right?
And then we're gonna wonder why no one is really want to put more money into the neighborhood because they're not getting a return on their investment. The bottom line to the whole dollar bill thing situation anyway is that in the financial industry, it ain't about black and white, it's about green. And so everyone is in it to make money, true enough. And obviously the emotional ties to the community obviously is a vital and very huge of importance, but that ain't the primary thing. It's obviously making money in this situation, but also once you see that money being made, now you're not gonna be so reluctant to not put more money into the property, into that community. Now you want to see more of it grow because now you're seeing the growth in real time. And so, and like you said, we want to not only be at the table, damn it, we want to come with the damn table full of us.
Yes.
That. Man, I can't stress.
We literally want to walk in. We literally want to walk in
we need more space.
What's the name? What's the movie with we really want to walk in like Wakanda. We want to have like the army behind us, swole. That's what we want to do, but we can't do it if no one's teaching us how to be financially literate. So 1111 property management, that is one of our biggest things. Like we're not taking the claim of being accountants. We're not taking the claim of being credit repairers. We're taking the claim of the assistance to your next.
Absolutely.
That's the part. We want to educate you for your next. And so whoever we got to put you in front of, we have those people on our team. We can put you in front of those folks. That's not a problem for us. We had a young lady who came to us who wanted to rent one of our properties that we manage. And I love this lady. She came to me. And so I told her, I said, yeah, well, she was gonna do the application and everything. And I told her the price, it was about $1,650. And so, she was like, okay, all right. And then, she was like, man, this would be good because then I can probably purchase a home in about a year. And I was like, like it was that moment where I could educate her or I can just take her $1,650 a month. What am I going to do? Yeah. And it's already in my fiber. I'm like, look, do what you want to do. At the end of the day, I'm going to send you an application. You could do it. But I'm just thinking to myself, if your goal in a year is to purchase a home, in a year. I'm like, I'm really interested to know where you are in that, what your profile looks like to do that. Because the poor $1,650
for a year
down the drain, you could save $1,650 a month.
Sure can.
For a year.
And be ready.
To go. You're gonna be so bankable as it relates to if you go and work on whatever little, marks you have on your credit. And so we took her under our wing and we did that very thing. And I know that right now she's in the process of moving into that decision. Now she's in that whole little, mode. Cause that's the thing. That's a process.
Yeah, it is. And from a moral perspective, you guys that's an investment. That's a moral investment that you guys have already embarked on and doing by even not taking their money, but saying, you know what, you can actually do this. And we're gonna be granted the blessings that God give us anyway because of the fact that we're helping you and basically instilling that knowledge in you for you to know where you are in life from a financial standpoint to be able to own your own home versus taking that year of just wasting money just renting when you already financially in a position to own a home. Now I know for me that personally that hits home for me because I know talking to my realtor about that, I remember hearing her tell me that. And I was just like, well, we were trying to like wait a couple of years to save up enough money. And she broke it down. She was like, you really, I don't know who told you that, but that's been a misnomer for many years in the Black community where you got to have this amount of money saved up in order to do this. It was like, I was like, wow. So I've been lied to all this time. Man.
Yeah. And she was a Gen Zer. She is a Gen Zer. She's a Gen Zer. And so all she's thinking is like, and her parents are really older and that's all she was thinking. Yeah. And so when we told her, we were just like, look, at the end of the day, you have a decent job, you know what I'm saying? So, it's a job that's going to sustain, this current time that we're in. So that's good. Right. Absolutely. Every bank loves that. Yeah. And then, you're an essential worker. And then in addition to that, you're able to put out that much to be able to do renting. I'm like, if you just go save that and then you take care of the other little marks that's on
She
there.
just needed like
She just needed
a few points,
few
in
little
the credit.
tweaks,
Yep.
right? So I'm saying that to say, like, no, we're not trying to, throw ourselves out of business, because again, we know that we will be blessed, but also too, for us, it's not about just that, because she's going to be someone that's going to come back, because she's looking to purchase a condo in the communities that we work in. She's going to be someone who's going to come back in a community and probably purchase in the communities that we already work in. One, we already know that more than likely will probably be her property manager. There we go. We know that we're speaking that in existence. Yep. Two, we know that she's going to be someone who's going to have a different mindset coming into the community, right? We know she's going to, keep her face as it should be, but then she's also going to be a part of the community. Also because of her profession too. I know she's going to be a part of the community.
Yeah.
So with that being,
be able to refer people to you all too.
And she'll be able to refer people to us too, right? So we know we're going to get so many benefits, but just going back to 1111 property management and why we do those things is because for us, it's personal.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's personal for us. And so when it comes down to your initial question to me, when it comes down to the politicians and stuff like that, they're going to benefit from us coming back into our communities fully loaded.
Absolutely. They'll come around and want to put their damn names on things that you are obviously involved in. Yeah, we're doing great things. Ain't no we are.
The community's doing great things. But look, $500,000 properties that are being purchased by Black millennials and Gen Zers.
That's great.
Right. Our parents were those people at one point, right? Our parents were those people, right? And so now we're bringing back that same sentiment. We are back, and we're back with full force. We're coming back. We're educated, right? But for us, we want to make sure that we can educate you from a renter's perspective. We want to make sure that we treat you well as a renter. We want to make sure that our investors understand that,
it's more than just bottom line.
It's more than just bottom line.
Absolutely.
But we understand bottom line as investors.
Right.
And we respect the bottom line.
Yeah,
because
we thoroughly respect
it. In order for us to make this
because you all are in the business of making money as well.
Right.
But you're also in the business of helping people manage and make money for them as well. Well, whether it be the tenants or whether it be the landlords. So everyone is in the business of successfully making money and being able to provide that information. You all are basically, what I like to say, you're helping them help you help them. If that makes any sense. Yeah. So by doing your job, you're helping by basically, just teaching them and enlightening them what it means to be the tenant and be a responsible tenant. Mm-hmm. All the while helping them also by helping them boost their credit up, by understanding that you're reporting that to the credit bureaus. That's going to help them be more financially stable, to where now, after a certain period of time of being a tenant in this renter property, now you can go off and do more than this for your life and for your family.
And I just want to say too, part of responsibility really quick as we start to, probably wrap things up is we've had some people who got hit really hard with this pandemic. And part of responsibility, part of responsibility was them speaking up and saying, you know what, I lost my job, or, I went furlough, or, my hours are less, or my kids are home and I really can't work like I used to. We were able to provide such a even platform where they felt comfortable talking to us and calling the office and saying that. That's hard for someone to call and say, you know what, I don't foresee that I'll be able to pay next month or the month after that rent. That was hard for them. And so we were able to take the initiative to go on the Google, and curate some information for them. And we gave some resources to our renters. And those resources ultimately, I feel like 100% of everyone that we gave it to were able to benefit from that. They were able to get that assistance. That's also part of responsibility.
Sure.
Absolutely. You have to be able to communicate where you are. Because again, this was a very unprecedented pandemic that happened in this past almost 2 years now. And so many people have lost their jobs, right? And so there are even in that midst of time, there's been many organizations or just companies in general who have been able to provide some of those incentives to help not only the tenants, but the government has been stepping in, helping the landlords too, with just providing some type of monetary incentive to them to where they can stay afloat as landlords. So that, you don't have to worry about evicting anyone, because the government is giving you some type of monetary assistance to help you stay afloat as a landlord, as a homeowner, or whatever the case may be. So that way, and the flip side of that, they're helping the unemployed too. right? So
Yeah.
obviously, I think recently the additional funds that was given to people who lost their jobs, I think it had just
Ended.
expired. So, but I mean, unemployment is still around. So for those people who are still, kind of iffy about whether or not it's safe to go back to work, you still have some incentives on both ends, and that's the one thing that I want to highlight that the government has been helping with from both standpoints, right? Is being able to help the tenant as well as being able to help the landlord.
First, they weren't though.
They weren't at first,
They
but
weren't
we're
at
talking
first.
about the last damn administration who
Yeah,
did.
we was. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was in the early stages when the shutdown first happened around March of last year. Everyone was just up and adamant about what the hell are we going to do now. So it's trying to figure things out. I mean, it was rough the first few months of the pandemic, especially given how rapid the pandemic was happening. And so for us as Black people, we were disproportionately affected by it in so many areas, not just from a living standpoint, but just from a health standpoint too. And so we had to figure out ways of just improvising and just making do what we had. But even in situations like that, that goes to show you how well we were able to triumph over that situation, even though we're still in the midst of it right now. But for the most part, we're gradually getting back to a place of normalcy, or whatever can even look
new norm,
right?
The new norm, whatever that norm will even be. Hopefully, with it being 2.5 months left in the year, next year will be better than what it was this year and the previous year for us. I mean, being able to communicate that, I can understand how that can be a struggle for most
or an
people,
investor,
adults, even investors too,
the
right?
investor be like, hey, look, I mean,
How we look,
how we looking, like
I
got laid off, and it's like I don't know what to do now, and it's like, well, listen, like you said, the Google a very helpful source. You type in, just those different organizations or different parts of the government, whether state or federal government, that's actually giving money to those who have been furloughed or lost their jobs.
Yeah.
These are the types of things you have to put your name in, because that money can go fast. Now, if you don't get in line and wait your turn, and if you don't sign up at all, then you miss out on what could ultimately help you stay afloat for that particular point in time until you're able to get to a better place in life financially. So those are you have to take advantage of.
It was community based too, taking advantage of some of the community incentives that were out there as well for like local gas, local incentives that were out there. And so, again, our whole thing is the whole position of it all, right? And so that's what we appreciate about what we do. And then, even during the whole pandemic, we were still doing tenant appreciation. We were still making sure our tenants felt appreciated, even if they were up against waiting for those incentives to come through or not. We were still making sure they felt appreciated. Sending pandemic packets,
sanitizer and gloves,
checking on them, checking on our seniors. We were still checking on our seniors.
That's great, and we need more of that too, man. Because especially given that this pandemic has distanced so many people, both metaphorically and figuratively. Like, I mean, literally and figuratively distancing everyone. So it's like now you're not checking up on people that you normally check up on as much. And those types of things fall into the wayside because, okay, well, we got to make sure I got to make sure I'm safe first. But after you make sure you and your family safe, it doesn't hurt to help to see if someone else needs assistance in some type of area, even if it's something it can be something minor as hand sanitizer, masks, or gloves, or things like that. That initiative, that passion for the community, that's what helps. And I always break down, excuse me, what the word community for me means, right? So the root word is coming together in unity. That's what community is. And if we can't be a community collectively, if we're only concerned about me and mine and you and yours, how are we really saying we're really progressing as a Black community as a whole, especially given so many circumstances that we had to endure over the course of time in general, but preferably in our Black communities that they, once put us in. So we have to make best with what we got until we're able to get more and better. But that's going to happen. It's only going to happen if we're together with this, if we're unified and monolithic about it. That more of those types of things, more of those positives are going to come out of situations like this. Because even in the midst of a struggle, even in the midst of bad times and negative times, there's always silver linings in things like this. And there's been so many different testimonial stories in what this pandemic has brought us that it really does show your true testament of what your faith is like, but understanding that faith without works is dead. You can't just pray it away. And I've always said that too. A lot of times previous generations think, oh, I'm just going to pray it. God going to save it. Well, what are you doing to do your part though? Well, you got to do your work. You still got to put in the work. You can't just stand still and say God gonna handle it. He blessed you with common sense and the know-how to do these things. So, but you have to also understand we are here to service each other. Above all else, if we're not doing that, then what are we really doing here? And so those are key things that I find near and dear to me, and I always try to put that out there on this show when it comes to providing that content and information that's going to help us collectively as a Black community get better than what we got. Because from a financial standpoint, we go broke trying to look rich, and then wonder why, keeping up with the Joneses is making us struggle even more. It's like you want to one up somebody for what? For a designer shirt and some shoes. But what do you actually own though? Are you just a consumer versus actually being an owner of something? Like,
I have to tell people that too. Even with renting, they want the biggest with the tallest ceiling. And I'm like, okay, well, that's $3,800.
That takes work.
That's $3,800 a month. And they're like, wait, why? Because that person who owns that property, they want their bread.
They want the design.
They know their worth, right?
Exactly.
So you want to look rich, but you don't understand the value of why they're asking for what they're asking, right? But you'll walk inside of Gucci or Louis Vuitton or whatever, and you'll be like, "Oh,
about the price." Yeah, you ain't that, but you want discounts on every damn thing else, though.
It makes no sense, and so we have to change our people. We're not bashing us. We just know our folks, right?
Listen, it's not bashing, and I always say that on this show too. It's critiquing us in a helpful way because we know what's better than anybody else knows us. We know the things that we need to work on. I know personally, I always say this on my show. I don't have the answers to everything, but I'm always willing and open to talking to people who have answers in those areas that I'm struggling or even wanting to know more about, right? So I'm not just taking this information and don't want to disperse it to everyone else. I'm also applying it to my own everyday life too, because I know for me, I know having kids, I want my kids to not only be proud of who their father and mother is, but I want to be able to lead them with something. And I want to be able to create that general wealth for a generation that I won't even be alive to see.
Exactly.
It's the ultimate important thing that we need to keep focused and actually have our minds have that tunnel vision on in the end. So again, I appreciate
every other culture and race and ethnicity.
They do it.
Are doing it.
Why are we not doing it?
Sometimes feel like we can't. We can.
We used to though. We but now, but we're Xeroxing the Xeroxers now. Now we're copying the people who copied us.
Yeah.
How much does that make?
Yeah. So we got to take a step. We got to take a leap of faith. We have to get out there. There's going to be some risk, but
change the narrative.
And so that's what we do, here in Chicago.
Narrative changers.
That's it. We look to definitely branch out to some other, cities and states. That's to come. But I do want to leave you guys with, if I can do a short little plug, we are definitely doing some little tweaking to our own business.
Yeah.
We are definitely, look, we've been word of mouth for so many years. We have been so blessed with word of mouth. Honestly, I get people who be like, why you don't do any marketing? Why you don't put anything up? And I just be like, word of mouth has just worked, right? Look, we are a small business, and we don't want to get too much that we can't be able to uphold, but we've definitely been nudged, and just a little spiritual. The Holy Spirit has nudged us that it's time to come from behind and to move forward a little bit more. And so we are a boutique property management. And when I say that,
selective.
We're selective. You may choose us, but ultimately we're going to choose you.
Absolutely.
To work with. That's from a investor standpoint, and that is also from a tenant standpoint. But of course, from a tenant standpoint, if your paperwork match up, you're in there. But yes, I'm saying it all to say though, we're going to make some new tweaks to how we market and promote our business. And so we'll be making some changes to our social media platform, but we are on social media at Instagram under 1111 Property Management. And so you can find us there written out just like that. Yes, we use all the verbiage because we wanted to make sure this is us. And our logo is there as well. But also we're going to launch our website too. So our goal, our date is 11/11 because it's some sentiments behind 11/11. And so that's our goal. And so on that same day, we will be doing some outreach on that day. We're going to have some material out there, some dates out there for people to be able to be a part of the outreach. We invite anyone who wants to be a part of that outreach to do that. We want to be able to give 111 meals to people on that day. We want to be, so the number 11/11 or 111 is going to be the thing for that day, right?
Okay.
So we want to be able to gather food for the holidays for families so that we can give out roughly around the Christmas time. Thanksgiving or Christmas. We want to be able to give out food for that too. So we'll be collecting some food too on that day. So we're going to have some areas where we'll be doing some outreach things. And so we just know that ultimately the way that we're going to continue to be blessed just as individuals is that we have to be able to give back. And so that is our goal, that is our heart, and that is our passion. And so with that being said, look out for that. This is amazing. I appreciate you for having us come on here.
I thank you guys. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. And part of the show is, being the biggest blessing is being a blessing to someone else. And I think what you guys are doing, it's incredible. The fact that you have so much passion and have that knack for wanting to invest into that money back into the community that you guys are from. And so, I hope that we can inspire more people to do the same exact thing. And I know for me personally, even though I don't live in Chicago anymore, I still want to still be a part of the growth and development of Chicago from a positive standpoint. And so as far as your 11/11 initiative, if I can contribute towards it monetarily, I would definitely donate towards that so that more people can, obviously get food for the holidays and things like that too, because it sounds like a great idea to help those in the community, because you obviously are showing your face and showing that you actually care, and you're not just worried about just taking anyone's money or things like that, but you're actually pouring back into the community in all aspects. And that's something that can't be highlighted enough when it comes to just the love and that passion and initiative that you guys have. So I really appreciate you guys for doing that and even talking about this. So, but yeah, we'll definitely circle back and I want to get a recap on, where you guys are, especially given that I'm gonna be putting this out on all my social media platforms. So you guys are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or is it which ones exactly?
So Twitter, probably what happened this weekend.
Okay.
Instagram, yes. Facebook, I have not put us on Facebook. So, my marketing team always says their giggles is, but you gotta get the older people who are on Facebook as well. So you gotta make sure you're on there too.
Oh, I resent that statement. Obviously, Facebook ain't even the oldest platform of social media, but it's like it's still being used by even young people. So yeah, whatever.
So they say I got to get that too. So we'll definitely make sure we have Facebook. And then if I didn't mention, but I think I did, but if I didn't, our website will launch that day too on 11/11. But yes, we are on Instagram under 11/11 Property Management, and then our Twitter will be up this weekend. And then we'll do Facebook too. Absolutely. But yes. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yes.
I just want to leave this notion to our people. The best way we can be changed, the best way we can be taken seriously is that we have to come together.
Absolutely.
We have to come together. The best way we can change the narrative of how we're looked at as a culture, as an ethnicity, as our individual genders, is that we have to come together. And Absolutely. So, this may seem small to someone but we know that planting seeds like this is going to be what truly grows the next generation. And so it has to start with someone taking the risk to step outside what was expected for us to do and go do the unexpected so we can bring back to our communities. And so, but the only way we can truly be able to walk it out is to do it together as one. So, man, I just hope that, everyone that's watching this just understands that, we at the table, each one teach one, yes, but we at the table. We are at the table, but we got to come to the table prepared.
Yep, and that table going to continuously grow with more of us involved in those decisions and being a part of that opportunity to make more money and just be able to provide for our families a lot more than we've ever been provided for, even for ourselves. And so, yeah, but to all my listeners and followers and viewers of the show, I'll be providing that social media contact for both Harry and Crystal's social media pages. I'll also be providing in the description of my YouTube channel as well. So be sure to like, share, subscribe to this YouTube channel and be able to like, share, subscribe to my Spotify and all other social media platforms as well. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Obviously, I have a personal Twitter account where I'm always putting this type of content out as well for the podcast. And I'm on all podcast platforms, Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts as well. So be sure to like, share, subscribe to it. Harry, Crystal, Valentine, again, thank you all so much for being providing this information, helping our community become more of a community. Coming together in unity is what the primary goal is for us as Black people. And so you guys are exemplifying that to the highest degree. And I give you guys the highest honors and praise and recognition for what you guys are doing. And this is a show that we give our Black men and women on an everyday basis their flowers for what immediate impacts that they're making in our Black community. So again, thank you all again. And we'll definitely be circling back again to talk more about what's been going on in the city of Chicago, preferably, and what you guys have planned in the future, possibly.
Thank you, Marlon. We appreciate that.
All right, Marlon, we'll see you soon.
All right. See you guys again. Take care and be safe.
All right now.
All right. If you like what you've heard from this week's episode and would like to hear more from previous episodes, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel below. You can also find me on social media platforms at Speak to the Mic _podcast show on Instagram and Speak to the Mic podcast show on Facebook. Be sure to also like, share, and subscribe to my Spotify page at Speak to the Mic podcast show. As I put out more thought-provoking content, your opinion and thoughts are needed and appreciated. I thank you all in advance for your support and look forward to hearing from you soon.